They didn't plan to conquer. But sometimes, intentions don't matter when you hold the power to change a world. It all began with a simple exploration mission, no weapons, no armies, just hope and curiosity. The Odyssey was humanity's most advanced deep space vessel, carrying a crew of 25 scientists, engineers, and diplomats. Their mission? Discover uninhabited planets and study them, nothing more. Captain Alara Hayes stood on the bridge, her eyes wide as the ship hovered over a shimmering blue-green planet. It was unlike anything they'd seen, vast oceans, sprawling forests, and mountain ranges that sparkled like crystal. "Readings confirm," said Dr. Adrian Wolfe, the chief biologist. "Breathable atmosphere, Earth-like gravity. It's perfect." Alara's heart pounded. They might have just found humanity's second home. But then, a flicker on the radar, movement. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Vega, the navigator. "There's life down there. Intelligent life." The mission protocol was clear: observe only. No contact. No interference. But that's when fate intervened. A sudden surge, a magnetic storm erupted from the planet's core, yanking the Odyssey downward. Systems failed, engines sputtered, and within moments, the massive ship crash-landed into a dense jungle, its sleek hull now embedded deep into the planet's surface. The crew scrambled to stabilize systems, but outside the wreckage, shadows stirred. Figures emerged, tall, graceful beings with iridescent skin and luminous eyes, watching silently from the trees. Alara raised her hands, signaling peace, but then something strange happened. The beings knelt. One by one, they bowed before the humans, whispering in a melodic language. "What's going on?" Adrian whispered. "They think we're gods," Alara murmured, stunned. The crew exchanged nervous glances. What was meant to be a peaceful exploration had just taken an unexpected turn. And that's when they realized, accidentally or not, they now ruled this world. The jungle buzzed with life, but all Alara could hear was her own heartbeat echoing in her ears. The tall, luminous beings still knelt before her crew, their heads bowed low, hands pressed flat against the soft ground. The moment was surreal, almost sacred, but Alara felt only dread. "This wasn't supposed to happen," she whispered. Adrian stepped closer, eyeing the aliens with a scientist's curiosity. "Do you realize what this means? An entire species, worshipping us." Alara snapped her head toward him. "It's a misunderstanding. We need to fix it before this spirals out of control." But it was already spiraling. One of the beings, taller than the rest, rose to his feet. His shimmering skin caught the sunlight, reflecting soft hues of blue and gold. He approached, cautiously, his hands outstretched in peace. The crew tensed, hands hovering near the emergency stun devices strapped to their belts, though none dared to use them. The alien spoke, a melodic string of sounds that echoed through the trees. The ship's translator strained, buzzing in Alara's earpiece before delivering its crude interpretation. "You are the sky people. The prophecy speaks of your return." Alara's brows furrowed. "Prophecy? No, we're just explorers." But the being continued, interrupting her with a soft, reverent gesture. He pointed at the Odyssey's towering hull, now half buried in the jungle floor. To him, it wasn't a wrecked vessel, it was a symbol. "You have come to heal the broken lands. To guide us." The crew exchanged worried glances. "Captain, we should be careful," Adrian muttered. "This is delicate. If we reject them too harshly, they might see it as hostility." Alara sighed, feeling the weight of her position heavier than ever. They couldn't stay and play gods. But they also couldn't abandon these people now that they'd made contact. The alien placed a hand over his chest. "I am Vale, Elder of the Luminari." Alara hesitated, then mirrored his gesture. "Alara Hayes." Captain of the Odyssey. We didn't mean to intrude. Vale's face softened, his iridescent eyes shimmering. The land brought you here. It is destiny. Suddenly, more luminari emerged from the trees, carrying ornate gifts, fruits, crystals, and woven fabrics shimmering with unknown materials. They placed them gently at the humans' feet, bowing again. This is escalating fast, Adrian whispered. They're offering tribute. Elara felt the rising panic in her chest. They had to find a way to communicate their true intentions. But then, a soft whimper caught her attention. At the edge of the clearing, a luminari child had approached, tiny, fragile, its luminous eyes wide with curiosity and fear. It tripped over a root, falling hard onto the ground. The entire crowd gasped but remained still, as if too afraid to interfere. Without thinking, Elara stepped forward. She knelt beside the child, lifting it gently into her arms. Its small body trembled, but when their eyes met, the fear melted away. Elara smiled softly, brushing dust from its delicate skin. A ripple passed through the crowd, a collective exhale. Murmurs filled the air, growing louder, more excited. Adrian's translator buzzed again, she touches the young. She is merciful. The moment solidified the misunderstanding. Elara felt the sinking realization, they weren't just accidental rulers now, they were seen as benevolent gods. Back aboard the Odyssey later that night, the crew gathered around the flickering holographic table. The ship's systems were mostly offline, repairs barely underway. We need to talk about what just happened, Elara began, her voice firm but shaken. We can't let them keep believing we're divine, said Vega, her voice edged with panic. But if we reject them now, we might cause panic, or worse, Adrian countered. We have no idea how deeply this prophecy runs in their culture. Elara rubbed her temples. The moral weight of the situation pressed down on her. They had the power to shape this civilization's future, accidentally or not. Captain, Vega spoke again, we need to decide, do we tell them the truth, or play along until we can leave? Elara looked around at her crew, some fearful, some intrigued, others already enticed by the strange power they now held. I don't want to rule, she murmured, but maybe, just maybe, we were brought here for a reason. The question lingered in the air, were they destined to help this world, or were they about to repeat humanity's greatest mistakes? The jungle dawn broke in soft purples and golds, casting a mystical glow over the luminari settlement. From the observation deck of the Odyssey, Elara watched as hundreds of the luminous beings gathered below, their movements graceful, almost ceremonial. They've built that overnight? Vega asked, pointing to a massive wooden structure now standing at the edge of the clearing. Its design mirrored the Odyssey's curved form, as if the luminari were immortalizing their gods in architecture. Elara's heart sank. They're preparing for something, but what? Before Vega could respond, the comms crackled to life. Adrian's voice came through, strained but urgent. Captain, you need to get down here. Now. Elara and Vega rushed to the clearing, where a large crowd had assembled. At its center stood Vale, the luminari elder, flanked by warriors with intricately carved staffs. Before them knelt a trembling luminari male, his head bowed low. Adrian stood awkwardly nearby, his face pale. They're holding a trial. Elara frowned. For what? The translator buzzed as Vale spoke, his voice solemn, this one stole from the sacred grove. He has broken our code. The penalty is exile. Elara's stomach twisted. She stepped forward, drawing the crowd's attention. Exile? For stealing food? Vale's shimmering eyes turned toward her, filled with both reverence and confusion. The code must be honored. It is the way. Elara glanced at the accused, a young male, thin and frail, clutching a bundle of fruit close to his chest. His eyes pleaded silently. This isn't right, she whispered. Adrian stepped closer. Elara, be careful. If you interfere, it could upset their entire system. But we can't just stand here and let this happen, she shot back. Taking a deep breath, Elara raised her voice. Vale, in my world, we believe in mercy. No one should suffer for trying to survive. The translator buzzed, relaying her words. A murmur spread through the crowd, shock, curiosity, perhaps even hope. Vale's expression softened but remained firm. The Sky people value mercy above law? Elara hesitated. This was the moment, the thin line between guiding and ruling. Yes, she finally said. We believe in second chances. The crowd held its breath as Vale considered her words. Finally, he raised his staff and spoke. Then, as decreed by the Sky people, this one shall be spared. The young Luminari collapsed in relief, tears glistening on his luminous skin. But Elara felt no victory, only the heavy realization that her influence was growing. She wasn't just guiding them now, she was reshaping their world. Back on the ship, tensions flared. You shouldn't have done that, Vega snapped, pacing the control room. We're interfering in their laws, Elara. What if this destabilizes their society? Adrian rubbed his temples. But what was the alternative? Let them exile someone over fruit? Elara sat in silence, feeling the weight of both arguments. This isn't what I signed up for, Vega muttered. We came here to explore, not play gods. I know, Elara whispered. But we can't ignore the responsibility we have now. Whether we like it or not, they look to us for guidance. The room fell silent, the crew grappling with the enormity of their situation. That night, Elara wandered back into the clearing, drawn by soft melodies echoing through the trees. She found a group of Luminari gathered around a glowing pool, singing harmonies that vibrated in her chest. Vale appeared beside her. You showed kindness today. Our people will remember. Elara sighed. I'm not sure if I did the right thing. Vale tilted his head. Leaders often question themselves. But your heart speaks true. That is rare. She smiled faintly, though the worry gnawed at her. Vale, what happens if I make the wrong choice? He placed a hand over his chest. Then you will learn. As all do. In that moment, Elara felt a strange peace, but it was fleeting. Because deep in the jungle, hidden from their view, a group of Luminari watched the scene unfold with narrowed eyes. Their skin darker, adorned with jagged markings, they whispered in low, guttural tones. The Sky people disrupt the balance. They must be stopped. The seeds of conflict had been sown. The next morning dawned still and heavy, the vibrant jungle unusually quiet. Birds that once sang in chorus had gone silent, and even the ever-present hum of alien insects seemed distant. Elara stood at the edge of the clearing, staring into the dense trees. Something felt wrong. Scanners picked up some movement last night, Vega said, approaching her with a data pad. Unregistered life forms, just beyond the perimeter. Elara frowned. Luminari? Vega shook his head. Different energy signatures. Denser. More aggressive. Before Elara could respond, a loud explosion echoed through the trees. Smoke rose in the distance. Adrian, report. Elara barked into her comm. Captain, it's the Western Outpost. It's under attack, by something we've never seen before. Elara didn't hesitate. Vega, gear up. We're heading there. The Western Outpost had been one of their first setups, a small research hub to study the planet's unique flora. But when Elara and Vega arrived, it was in ruins. Structures were torn apart, equipment smoldering, and the defensive perimeter had been breached. Among the wreckage lay several Luminari, their luminous skin dulled by burns and wounds. A few survivors huddled together, trembling. Ilara knelt beside one, a young female, her body covered in jagged cuts. Who did this? The translator buzzed weakly as the Luminari gasped, the Forgotten Ones, they came from the shadows. Ilara's heart sank. Vale never mentioned any others. Vega scanned the surroundings, his rifle raised. Looks like not all Luminari welcomed us. A low growl echoed through the trees. Both Ilara and Vega turned, weapons aimed, as figures emerged from the shadows. They looked like Luminari, but darker, their skin rough and cracked, their glow dimmed to a faint flicker. Their eyes, however, burned with intensity. The leader, a towering figure with scars running across his chest, stepped forward. His voice was guttural, but the translator struggled to keep up. Sky people. You disrupt the balance. This world is not yours. Ilara lowered her weapon slightly. We came in peace. We didn't know. The figure growled. Peace? You have already chosen your side. You raise your hand to save them, he gestured toward the wounded Luminari. And in doing so, you destroy us. Vega kept his rifle steady. What does that even mean? The dark Luminari's expression twisted. The balance must be preserved. The Luminari you protect, they cast us out long ago. We are the forgotten, the ones who refused the light. Ilara's mind raced. Civil war? A splintered society? She had been so focused on helping the Luminari that she hadn't seen the cracks beneath their glowing surface. The Forgotten One stepped closer. Leave this world. Or be consumed by its darkness. Before Ilara could respond, Vega fired a warning shot into the ground. Back off. The leader didn't flinch. Instead, he gave a chilling smile. The jungle will decide. With that, the dark Luminari retreated into the shadows, vanishing as quickly as they'd appeared. Back aboard the Odyssey, the crew was on edge. We've just walked into the middle of a centuries-old conflict, Vega said, pacing the control room. Ilara stared at the holographic map of the planet, now marked with unknown territories. We thought we were helping, but we're just tearing open old wounds. Adrian sighed. And now both sides see us as part of the problem. Ilara clenched her fists. No. We're not leaving. We need to fix this. Vega shot her a glare. Ilara, we're explorers, not peacekeepers. This is beyond us. But Ilara's mind was already racing. The Forgotten Ones weren't just enemies, they were part of the planet's delicate balance. If humanity truly wanted to help, they couldn't pick sides. Her gaze hardened. We find a way to unite them. Or this planet will destroy itself, and us with it. Adrian hesitated before asking the question on everyone's mind. And if they don't want to be united? Ilara looked out the viewport, watching the shimmering glow of the jungle beneath them. Then we'll show them why humanity survives, because when things fall apart, we find a way to rebuild. But deep within the jungle, shadows stirred. The Forgotten Ones weren't done, and they had plans of their own. The Odyssey hovered silently above the dense jungle, its metallic hull gleaming under the planet's twin suns. Inside, the crew gathered in the central command room, tension heavy in the air. Vale stood near the viewport, his luminous skin flickering with unease. The Forgotten Ones were never meant to survive, he murmured, almost to himself. Ilara crossed her arms. But they did. And now they blame us for tipping the balance in your favor. Vale's glow dimmed. They were exiled for rejecting the harmony we embraced. They chose darkness. Vega scoffed. Sounds like history repeating itself. Two sides of the same coin, both blaming the other. Adrian, flipping through data on his console, interjected, we can't ignore them. They're organized, strategic. If they attack again, we might not be so lucky. Ilara paced the room. If this escalates into a full-blown conflict, the planet could be destroyed, and us along with it. Vale hesitated before speaking. There is a place. An ancient sanctuary, long abandoned. It was where the Luminari once gathered in unity, before the schism. Perhaps it holds the key to restoring balance. Ilara's eyes narrowed. Then that's where we're headed. The journey to the sanctuary was treacherous. Thick vines clawed at their path, and the jungle pulsed with an energy that felt alive. Shadows flitted between trees, always watching but never attacking. Adrian broke the silence. Feels like we're walking into a trap. Vega, gripping his rifle tighter, nodded. Wouldn't be the first time. Vale led them to a clearing where massive stone structures jutted from the ground, half consumed by nature. Intricate carvings covered the walls, depictions of Luminari bathed in light alongside darker figures, once united. This is where it began, Vale whispered. Where we chose separation over understanding. Ilara traced her fingers along the carvings. So, what now? We bring them here and hope for peace talks. Before Vale could respond, the ground trembled. From the shadows, the Forgotten Ones emerged, surrounding the clearing. Their leader, the scarred figure from the outpost, stepped forward. You dare come here, he growled. Ilara raised her hands in a peaceful gesture. We came to fix this. To find a way forward, for all of you. The Forgotten Leader's eyes narrowed. There is no path forward. Only retribution. Vale stepped between Ilara and the dark figure. We were wrong to cast you out. But this endless cycle will destroy us all. For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then, from deep within the sanctuary, a soft hum echoed. The carvings on the walls glowed faintly, responding to the presence of both factions. Ilara's heart raced. The sanctuary, it's reacting to both of you. The Forgotten Leader seemed unsettled but intrigued. What is this? Adrian scanned the readings. It's feeding off your energy signatures. Both light and dark. The sanctuary itself was a beacon, designed not to separate but to unify. It pulsed stronger as Vale and the Forgotten Leader hesitantly stepped closer together. Ilara's voice softened. This place was never meant to divide, it was meant to remind you of what you once were. United. But before any peace could take root, a sharp crack echoed through the clearing. One of the Forgotten Warriors, unable to contain his rage, fired a bolt of energy toward Vale. Vega reacted instinctively, diving to intercept the blast. It caught him in the side, sending him sprawling to the ground. Vega! Ilara screamed, rushing to his side as smoke curled from his armor. The Forgotten Leader's face twisted in fury. This is why there can be no peace. Blood always spills. But Vale, instead of retaliating, knelt beside Vega, his glowing hands hovering over the wound. His light seeped into Vega's body, closing the burn. Ilara looked up, eyes filled with tears. You don't have to be enemies. You can choose something different, right now. The sanctuary pulsed brighter, almost blinding. For the first time, the Forgotten Leader hesitated, his hardened expression faltering. But deep within the sanctuary, an ancient mechanism stirred. The very planet was responding to the tension, an imbalance that threatened to tear it apart. Adrian's console beeped frantically. Captain, if this energy spike continues, the sanctuary could implode. It can't handle this much conflicting energy. Ilara stood, facing both Vale and the Forgotten Leader. Then decide. Right now. Fight each other, or save this world. The sanctuary's walls shuddered as energy from both the Luminari and the Forgotten Ones clashed. Adrian's console blared warnings, its screen flashing red. Captain, this is getting out of control. If they don't stop, the whole planet could implode. Ilara's heart hammered in her chest. She looked between Vale, still kneeling by Vega, and the forgotten leader, who was seething with fury. The battle lines had been drawn once more. This time, it wasn't just about their people, it was about the very survival of the planet itself. "Stop this madness," Ilara pleaded, her voice desperate. "We can fix this. Together." The forgotten leader's cold eyes fixed on her, but his expression was unreadable. "Together? How can we be together when you stole everything from us? This planet, its future, everything, it was ours." Vale, still glowing with the faint light of his healing energy, stood. His voice was calm, measured, as if speaking through centuries of ancient wisdom. "We did not come to steal. We came to learn. But our presence disturbed the balance. We never understood what our arrival would mean, but now we must fix it." A deep rumble shook the ground. The sanctuary's walls trembled, groaning under the weight of the energy swirling around them. The forgotten leader clenched his fists, but the conflicting power within the sanctuary seemed to weaken him. He staggered backward, his defiance faltering. "We must act quickly," Vale said. "If we don't, we risk losing everything." Ilara's eyes darted to Vega, who had regained consciousness, his body still shaky but alive. "Vega, can you fight?" Vega nodded weakly, his face pale. "I'm good to go, Captain." Suddenly, the ground cracked open beneath them. The sanctuary, a symbol of ancient hope, was starting to tear apart. The stone beneath their feet split open, revealing a deep chasm that led straight down into the heart of the planet. The planet's core glowed ominously, pulsing with raw power. The forgotten leader took a step forward, his hand reaching for his weapon. "This ends now." But before he could raise it, a massive surge of energy erupted from the chasm, sending shockwaves through the clearing. It was as if the very soul of the planet was awakening in response to the conflict. The Forgotten and the Luminari were both thrown to the ground as the energy radiated outward, filling the air with an electric charge. "This isn't just about us anymore," Ilara shouted above the chaos, her voice carrying over the roar of the storm. "It's about the planet. We're fighting against something bigger than us." Vale looked at her, eyes wide with realization. "You're right. The planet, its core, it's reacting to the imbalance we've created. If we don't stop fighting, we'll destroy it all." The forgotten leader, his resolve beginning to crack, looked toward the chasm, his weapon still raised. For the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. Ilara ran toward him, not caring about the danger. "We can stop this. But only if you trust us." A tense silence fell over the group. The storm raged around them, but it was as if time itself slowed. The forgotten leader's gaze softened, just for a moment. He lowered his weapon, and with a quiet growl, he stepped back. Vale, too, took a deep breath, his hands outstretched as if to calm the storm. "Let us try." The ground beneath them vibrated, the planet's core sending out a pulse of energy, almost as if it was testing their intentions. Vale and the forgotten leader, despite their differences, both knelt, their hands touching the earth. The energy surged again, but this time, it felt different. Not violent or destructive, but more cohesive. A sudden light began to emanate from the planet's core, bathing them all in its warmth. Adrian, watching from the command console back on the Odyssey, was stunned. This is working." Vega, leaning against a nearby rock, smiled weakly. "I told you they could do it." The light intensified, swirling around the two leaders, Vale and the forgotten leader, as they connected with the planet, channeling its power. It was as if they were communicating directly with the world, offering their strength in exchange for peace. The storm that had raged in the sky began to subside, the winds dying down, and the air growing still. Ilara watched in awe as the ground beneath them began to heal, the cracks slowly closing, the planet's pulse steadying. It wasn't just the sanctuary that was being restored, it was the entire world. A world that had once been on the brink of destruction, now beginning to heal from the inside out. The forgotten leader stood up, his expression no longer filled with anger. Instead, it was a quiet acceptance. Perhaps, we were wrong. Vale's glow dimmed slightly, but there was a softness in his features. It is never too late to change. Elara felt a weight lift off her shoulders. The battle was over. Not with weapons or violence, but with understanding. The planet had chosen to heal, and in doing so, it had brought its people together. The forgotten leader nodded slowly, looking at Vale, then to Elara. This is a beginning. Not an end. Vale smiled. Yes. Together, we can rebuild. As the planet's energy slowly returned to its natural balance, the team realized the power they'd stumbled upon wasn't just physical, it was a lesson in unity, in resilience, and in the ability to heal from within. But, even as the planet calmed, Elara couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the first chapter of a much larger story. The universe, it seemed, had much more to teach them. The dust from the storm had settled. The once violent winds now gave way to the calm of dawn. Elara stood at the edge of the clearing, staring out across the horizon, where the sun was rising over the newly healed planet. The vibrant colors of the planet's vast forests, mountains, and oceans seemed to sparkle in the golden light, untouched by the destruction that had almost consumed it. Beside her stood Vale and the forgotten leader. There was no anger in their eyes anymore, only quiet reflection. Both had taken part in the great healing, their combined energy reaching into the planet's core to restore balance. The storm that had raged in their hearts and minds had been quelled, and the planet was now at peace. But there was more to this than just the victory of survival. Elara knew that, deep down, the planet's true healing had come from within. It had required the cooperation of two peoples, different in their origins and beliefs, coming together for a common cause. It had taken sacrifice, understanding, and a willingness to let go of old grudges. Vale turned to her, his eyes steady. You were right, Captain. This was never about just us. It was about the future of the planet. And now, we have to honor that future. Elara nodded, feeling a swell of pride. It wasn't easy, but we made it. We learned, we grew. We healed. Vega, who had been sitting on a nearby rock, his injuries now fully healed, joined them. He wore a grin, despite the exhaustion in his eyes. If you told me this is where we'd end up, I'd have laughed. I figured we'd be in a firefight right up until the last minute. Elara chuckled. I think we all did. But sometimes, the answers don't lie in what we're prepared for, they lie in what we can learn along the way. The forgotten leader approached them, his footsteps hesitant but resolute. I was wrong to judge you all so harshly. It was easy to blame you for the chaos, but now I see the truth. It wasn't your arrival that harmed us, it was the fear, the anger, the desire to control. Those things almost tore us apart. We must learn to live in harmony, or we risk losing everything again. Vale nodded. You speak the truth. Fear and hatred are powerful forces, but they can also be healed. We must teach our people to move forward, not by forgetting the past, but by learning from it. Elara's heart swelled with hope. It was the first time she'd heard the forgotten leader speak like this, his voice filled with an unexpected wisdom. He wasn't just a leader of his people now, he was a symbol of what could be achieved through unity.